Say your name, your last name.
Schlagdenhauffen.
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 He can't even say Roberto. Don't feel bad.
Shut up, man.
He can't even say Roberto. He been calling me Alberto.
Alberto. I'm a bad name guy, man. You know lie.
Yeah, man, skip it. Just Greg S. Greg with an
Bert.
peninsula.
You know what I
Make
just
a
said?
joke, man.
I say Bert. Fuck it. I don't want to get it wrong.
Go along with
Schlagdenhauffen.
There you go. There you go.
Schlagdenhauffen.
There he goes.
Schlagdenhauffen.
Schlagdenhauffen.
I got you, man. You good.
You know, when I was in Wisconsin at foreign exchange student, they called me Far From Poopin'. It's like, what? I was like, all right, well, that sounds great. I'm just verifying the spelling of my last name.
I got it right.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Hey, wait,
Mr.
hold on.
Mr. Spelling Bell.
Hey, Bert. Say that name.
Schlagdenhauffen.
You nailed it.
Oh, yeah. Better than most, for sure.
You got it better than me, bro. I'm still sloppy.
I'm going to give you an air pound.
Yeah, you did it with, he did it with no accent, though. He sounded like he was German.
At the time?
Schlagdenhaufen. Did I get it? Schlagdenhaufen.
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 Just the way it's spelled.
That's what I tell people when I cold call.
Schlag.
Secretaries I want to get through is say, hey, how do you spell your last name? Just like it's pronounced. And then silence.
Yeah.
And they push me through to the guy because they don't want to deal with it.
Schlagdenhaufen.
Schlagdenhauffen.
Schlagdenhaufen, yeah. I would have been Smith if I came in earlier in the U.S.
Schlag.
This just would have cut it off
I
like
say,
Schlag.
Greg Smith.
Yeah.
What's up?
Chilling.
Hey, welcome back to episode 10. I'm here with a very good friend from France. Hey, back in the days, my brother Greg Schlagdenhauffen. That's my dude right there. What's up, Jay?
What's up, man?
It's my man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Greg is, since he's been here, man, we hook up periodically. We go shoot some ball. He's been trying to play me one-on-one, man, but, I never let him win. He got a little game, he got a little jump shot. But I'm just so happy to have you here, man. So, just tell the people a little bit about yourself and, why did you come to America and the whole nine?
So, I guess it was 1996, 1997. So I was coming for high school basketball. So I came as a foreign exchange student in Germantown, Wisconsin, from a guy from miles south on the border of France and Germany, going to, Germantown, Wisconsin as the most German person out there. I'm French. But anyways, played a little basketball there. Did my senior year in high school in Washington College Academy, so Tennessee. And then I was going to play 1 year of NAIA basketball, redshirted, and then never joined the team again and focus on my studies after that. But kept the passion for the game. And then moved back to France after my college degree. And then business took me back into New York to build some distribution channels in the wine business. And then I moved back to France and then started my company and moved back in Atlanta in 2010 permanently.
That's awesome.
Actually, February 14th, 2010.
Absolutely. Well, the way I met Greg actually knew me before I really knew who he was, and which was kind of ironic. But it was fun. As you guys know, I had the opportunity to play in Europe for a long time, 9 years in France and 4 years in Switzerland. And this guy was a basketball connoisseur. Like, he knew everybody. And so, Greg, just tell him about the history, man, and how you got to know who I was prior to you coming here.
So, I guess the way we met, it was like my wife's bachelorette party. And then the next morning after that, I was going to go meet some of the girls that visited from out of town. And I couldn't come to the wedding. And I'm waiting in line in the buffet line of the hotel breakfast, and there's this dude who's like, you sound like you speak French. Do you speak French? And I was like, yeah. And I look at him, and I'm like, and you look really familiar. What's your name? And he goes, Bo Bell. I'm like, "Oh, Bell, Norris Bell?" And he goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh man, I remember when you played in Mulhouse. You were the rival player from the other team that was trying to go up a division, and I was playing in Strasbourg. He was playing in Mulhouse,
Right.
and kind of named most of the players on his team, his coaching staff, and." That they finished third after my team, by the way. So, you can brag about beating me in 21 all you want, but that year we got you. And, that's how we kind of became friends, share the same passion for basketball. And, yeah, we go shoot every once in a while, try to give him a little run for his money, and are both of our advanced age, but also trying to be in denial about it. Still competing.
Hey, still competing. But it's just interesting, man. Like, having the opportunity to play in Europe and play in France, watching the difference, watching the disparity in certain different things. For example, just the style of play, number one. The basketball IQ, number two. And number three, the team camaraderie. Watching, players really buy into the team concept more so than here in America. That was what I saw the biggest difference. And I think because of that, on some of my other shows, episodes, we touched on that. The issue is, just my perspective, is a lot of the players here, they rely so much on athleticism and talents and that sort of thing. But the biggest thing, they've gotten bored with the basics, right? Whereas in France, what I noticed, like when we worked out and did drills and everything, some of the shit was weird, but it worked, right? For example, we playing soccer in practice, you know what I mean?
Right.
Things like that. But every player, no matter how tall he was, how fast he ran, did the same drills. And can you touch on that, man, in terms of how do you see, because there's an influx of European players that's coming here. What do you think, how do you see the future of basketball in France and in the United States?
Well, the first thing I want to say is basketball is like a global language, right? And so you have different interpretation of the same language, and people express themselves differently, and it's a total global sport, which is amazing, right? I think one of the main things, is the team orientation, right? So I don't think I've ever been on a team or witnessed a team, even on the pro level, where there's a guy that's so good that basically you give him a pass and let him do whatever he wants. I mean, he's going to have to be held accountable for the team. He's going to have to practice. He's going to have to practice hard. And he's going to have to do the drill just like everybody else. Not because he's the best player and it's like, whatever. We're just going to let him do that. Second thing is in terms of basketball IQ, the collective fundamental, the team fundamentals that the players have and how to play together and part of a general unit takes precedence over everything.
Yes.
You really don't see too many of the guys that are going to want to take every shot that there is. I think it would annoy the rest of the teammates, and I think it would annoy the coach for the balance of the offensive game. Here you can see some guys that just wants the ball every time and wants to go. And I think there's some ups and there's some downs. I mean, if you look into the last players that were in the NBA, you look at Boris Diaw, you look at Nicolas Batum, those guys are so talented offensively, but sometimes you kind of want them to take more offense, be a little bit more selfish, maybe take the lead. But I think it's culturally a little bit different where you got to make sure all your teammates are involved and you really kind of gel and work together as a team. Here, it's more of an individual sport. I think it has a lot to do with, how you get recruited and how you want to put up stats and how you want to, when you do that, has to do a lot with, how it is to get noticed in order to take it to the next level.
Right.
And I guess, just basically the infrastructure on how you raise players and you help them grow.
And I'm glad you said that. I'm so happy you said that. And that's where I was going to go, the infrastructure. The basic, the start, the grassroots is the infrastructure,
right,
or where it all starts, right? So what's happening, and we talked about this, and I'm gonna continue to talk about this because we want to bring light to this, man. Because the coaches, the trainers, or whoever is handling our kids, especially our young ones with a lot of potential, if we don't, and I'm gonna say we, right? If we don't get our kids, the young ones, and keep them focused on the basics, and master the basics first, but also make them understand that it's a team first, me second.
Nobody can do anything on their own.
Exactly.
You can be as good as you want, but you need to have supporting cast, and you need to get them involved, and you need to keep them happy in order to lift the entire team.
Yes.
You give up a little bit of yourself individually to help the team up, and that's the entire goal, right? Like
Yes.
at the end of the game, it's like when you look on the scoreboard, who's got the most point on it, right? So as a team, not
yes.
you individually.
Yes. If you remember, because you're a basketball guy, I mean, you're a Bible when we talk about basketball, because we had some of the conversations we have is really in depth. You remember how the American teams, national teams, used to go and destroy all the European teams, 60, 50 points.
I mean, 1992 was like absolutely poetry in motion, right?
Yes, but that's not happening now.
No, that's not happening anymore. And there's two things that happen. Even if you look into like the Sydney Olympics in 2000, right, where France made it to the final, they came into the final playing the U.S. That was like the Vince Carter dunk over Fred Weiss. I mean, everybody's seen that one. And one of the most amazing dunks you've ever seen in a game. The French team came in the final and it was like, you know, we're done. We've accomplished what we wanted to do. We're in the final. We're not going to win. We're just going to go. We're happy. We get silver medal. U.S. is unbeatable. Well, that is gone.
Yep.
That is absolutely gone. And with Argentina and with Serbia and Greece,
Yes.
you know, those guys are like, you know what, 5-on-5.
Well,
let's take it.
Let me ask you this. With that being said, and this is why since I retired, I've been preaching feet work, basics, don't get bored with the basics. That's what we're about in the academy, developing. So with that being said, give me two things, give me two things, if more. Why is that the European teams have kind of closed that gap?
I think there's a lot more communication between the two, going back and forth. I think also like some of the toughest Europeans back in your days were not always all that respected in the U.S., right? Like, so you look
Yes.
at a guy like Drazen Petrovic, it took him until he got to the nets to really get a significant chance. Unless, of course, like Detlef Schrempf or whatever, they went to the university system. But, you know, we didn't really believe in the Euros too much back in the days. And then after that, it's just, I think the European game has added on top of the individual practice and the team basketball IQ has added a lot more physical training to where like sheer athleticism is not an issue anymore. So now you get the best of both worlds, and then of course collectively, I think the player, the basketball IQ as a team player is greater in Europe than it is here, and I think the individual talent and scoring ability is a little bit higher here. But if you do the combination of the two, you can find a really good, you know, you can find a really good. I mean, now we see like European players that are not all that athletic or don't look that way, like Doncic or Jokic. Jokic looks like he's going to trip every time he put a foot in front of the other.
Right.
And yeah, what happens, right? So
Yes.
I mean, and I think it goes back to your training as well. So when you're teaching your kid to be like, okay, well, most of the time you're like left foot, right hand. You're doing like, hey, if you bounce on your right hand, on your right foot and go right hand, it looks awkward. Why are lefties so effective, right? Because it looks really in a way that you don't expect as a defense player. It takes you by surprise.
Yes.
It's something you didn't expect to be happening. So it gives you an advantage in that sense. And the commitment to basketball that you can see around the world, and the commitment to the language of basketball and the sport of basketball is incredible.
Well, it just goes to show you that whatever you decide to do in sports or anything, if you master the basics first and never deviate away from that. I think here in the United States, you know, we've gotten so caught up in how it looks, right? Well, the dunk, that's good, right? But, you know, the windmill, the crossing somebody over, breaking the ankles, seeing somebody's fall, woo, 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 but you missed the shot. You know what I mean?
Oh, man,
You know what I'm saying?
I went to the Boys and Girls Club. That's what the kids were crossing me up. They're like 12 years old. And then they throw like some kind of pancake. And I'm like, why don't you shoot the ball?
Yes,
It's like,
but see,
no, it's okay.
Yeah, but the
They're
thing
just
about
laughing at me.
It's the media and it's what we receive. And what's happening is a lot of these kids who they think is going to be that next kid is not going to get it because he's not getting the right information with the way that the game is going. And they're going to be surprised because the game is still played on the ground. And players that understand how to play the game on the ground, utilize both legs, be efficient, pass the ball when you're supposed to, shoot it when you're supposed to. When I first went to Europe, and I'm not gonna lie to you, man. You know, I was over there trying to dunk on there. Those are marks. Every time I go to the basket, I'm trying to break the basket because you know once it's on the rim, people trying to knock it off. I said, hold up, I can't keep doing this, man. So I started watching Philippe Zaniel, right? Because Philippe, it was his feet. It was his feet. He scored 30 points. And so I started doing some workouts with Philippe, man. And when I said, man, it's the feet, it added 5 years to my career once I took that approach, and the game really started to slow down.
I mean, he's one of the best examples of footwork, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, talk about having these years. I don't think I've ever, in 20 years I watched this guy play, I don't think I've ever seen him dunk.
Yes.
And he was 6'9".
Yes.
I don't think I've ever seen him take a right-handed shot.
Yes.
I mean, everything was like his hook,
It's left.
pivot,
And you know what he's going to do, and you still couldn't stop him.
Couldn't stop him because he was just getting you going in one direction and just pivoting the opposite direction, and it was too late.
Yeah, Philippe Zaniel. Philippe Zaniel was a teammate of mine. He played on the French national team. And he kind of really, his style of play kind of opened my eyes to the difference in the way that we really play and how you could continue, how you could be effective without just jumping and using so much athleticism. I learned so much from working with Philippe Zaniel. So young people, coaches, man, please, you know, work on your kids about, you know, basketball IQ, being efficient, being effective. But more important, man, being good team players. And speaking of team players, man, you watching that March Madness?
Oof.
What you think, man? I know your bracket messed up.
I mean, you know, Kansas State was kind of fun to watch for a little bit. And, well, my bracket, it's my first time ever doing a bracket.
Right.
But, yeah, what a refreshing bunch of kids.
Yes.
Just completely shaking the hierarchy and surprising everybody. And, yeah, I got a sweet spot for Florida Atlantic there. I think they've been super well coached.
Yes.
And, yeah, it's quite a tournament. I can't wait to see more on Thursday.
Well, when you watch these four teams play, for me, right, what I see is some very talented players, number one.
Yeah.
Very athletic players. But the coaching and the way that they play, you know that all those kids in every one of those teams have bought into something bigger than themselves.
That and the level of confidence, right? Like, I mean, just their ability to kind of withstand a little bit of ups and downs in the game and kind of turn it around and stay confident in what they're doing and finding the right shots and the right passes and the right plays. You know, really, really good and well-accomplished basketball.
But you know where that comes from? It comes from a trust.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a trust in each other in that locker room. And the coach have a certain confidence in all of those players, and each one of those players have confidence in themselves, and the coach hold each and every one of them players accountable, and they are responsible. Then the coach becomes accountable and responsible. So you got all of that is working together, and when you get, and that's easy said than done. So it doesn't matter who some of these guys, you know, teams they play against. They're gonna always be competitive and gonna have an opportunity to win. For example, Florida Atlantic, right? They won more games in NCAA history.
I mean, their last
35 games, bro. They won 35 games in the NCAA.
And some say, well, they're not playing in the greatest division. But
Doesn't
you know
matter.
what?
Win
you
is a
know,
win.
like,
Win is a win, bro.
At that level, everybody competes. Right?
Yes.
Like, so you got some guys that are overlooked and they're just as good and waiting for their chance to go and be like, oh, you know what? I'm the underdog. Those guys are high recruits, but let's take them. Let's see, 5-on-5. Let's see what we can do.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought, you know, Florida Atlantic was like super well coached in the last game against Kansas State, the way they put it in the bag, they bring this guy out. Okay, so now you got a zone press that's coming at you, right? Like, it's hard to inbound the ball because they're going for the steal right away, if not the foul. So you have two in a row. You get that one guy in, Martin, the guy with the long hair, right? So he just comes in. Not only he gets the ball, he gets fouled and makes all the free throws. He didn't play a second in the game. And the coach is just on the sideline, just like, yeah, no, it's just according to the plan.
Yes.
Really, really well-accomplished team, and I think it's really refreshing to see a bunch of new programs kind of coming. Well, new programs. I mean, they're all programs, but programs that you don't always see at that level. You know, getting a chance to shine, and you know, I think those kids have a real future.
Yeah, I think so too. So, who's your favorite?
I'm gonna go with Florida Atlantic. I think, but I mean, San Diego State. I really like the fiery style as well, like that run and gun. This is kind of fun.
Just curious, why do you choose Florida Atlantic?
I think it's probably the ones I've watched the most games, so I guess I'm soft like that. How about you?
I'm choosing the same.
You're choosing the same.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should be friends then.
No, I just like the underdog, especially when they do it the right way.
Well,
you know what I mean? I like it because they play hard, they play smart, and they play together.
And consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be hard to beat. Not saying that it won't happen, because at the end of the day, you got those other 3 teams that does the same thing, but probably has a little bit more talent. So that's going to be interesting to see. So let's touch the NBA a little bit, man. What do you think about that West, man? What's going on out there in the West, bro?
There's a little bit of a traffic jam, I think, from like 4 to 12.
Okay.
I mean, the first thing is going to be like, well, I think the West is going to be a little bit less predictable than the East. But anything can happen in the West, really.
Yeah.
A little bit interesting to see Doncic and good old friend Kyrie playing together and see how that gels. So far, it hasn't been all that great. But Jokic, Jamal Murray is there. The Canadian players are good too now.
Yes.
It's not just Europe coming about.
Yes.
Like Canada is like the most players in the NBA outside of the United States.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting to know. Not everybody knows Jamal Murray's Canadian, but they look good. Jokic can do so many things on the court. He's the epitome of the team basketball player.
Yes.
Just kind of racking it up. Interesting to see what Phoenix going to do with everybody healthy. I think Durant should be close to kind of getting back to healthy. Not a big fan of the super teams. Not a big fan of the players that kind of move around too much. But if they earn it, I'll be clapping. And then after that, it's I don't know, Sacramento. We don't have too much experience in seeing them, but they've had a really good season. Now they gotta have a good player up front. So it's quite open on the West, I think. I think people in the play-in can make it all the way through. In the East, you got a hierarchy between 3 teams. That's Giannis, of course, and the Milwaukee Bucks, which is my birthplace in America, I like to say. Then Philadelphia, of course, has been playing amazing, and Embiid deserves the MVP, if nothing else, out of the,
You got to at least give it to him this year, man, right?
I think so. I think he's towards the end of the season, it's been quite good.
Yes.
And I think he deserves it. Not to say that Jokic and Giannis don't also deserve it. Giannis will always deserve it just because of the motor that he has. I think he's got more motor than anybody else. There's never been a play where it wasn't like 200%.
Well, let me ask you a question,
admirable.
too. And I'm just going to give you my perspective on the Kyrie playing with Luka. People don't understand how tough that is when you be two of the guys on your team, right? And you go, see, I don't think Luka ever played with another player, big-time player like that guy, right? And he has a big personality. He got his stuff with him. Kyrie is Kyrie. But you can argue about the skills and the talent that this guy has. Here's what I think is what most people don't understand. Both of these guys are facilitators, right? They can make other people better. And both of these guys, they are trying to find their way in their mix. It's kind of uncomfortable for Luka. I'm watching him now. It's uncomfortable for him because he used to not, it's messing with his instincts.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's causing a problem because, see, with a player of his caliber, if he starts to think too much about what he have to do, he's not going to be as effective. And it's similar to Kyrie. So now they get called, okay, should I pass the ball? And then when they make passes at the wrong time and it's before and after, so it's that whole dynamic. I've been there now. And I had a player come on the team when I was in France where I got caught in that situation mentally and it started messing with my instincts. When I think back, that's why I'm able to understand that situation.
Yeah, the basketball game is a game of rhythm. It's a game of flow, right? They're both ball-centric players. So they both need the ball in their hands to really feel comfortable, and that's what they like to play.
Exactly.
There's only one ball for 2 people.
Right.
So, unfortunately, there's not too much offensive talents around that. I guess you got Hardaway around and, you get a couple of other guys. But, yeah, how do you cohabitate and find your flow, find, the comfort in there to where you can improvise properly and either create for yourself or create for the team, and just be basically, but it's one after the other. It's a two-man punch, but it's one plays after the other. It's not always looks like it's really coherent and they're playing well within each other's skill set.
Right. Well,
Kind of overlaps a
Right,
bit.
right. And here's why I think even, just that particular scenario, because with the way the game is going, there's so many dynamic players, especially a lot of young players out here. We have to, some kind of way, get them to understand it's not me now. It's we now.
Right.
You understand? So my thing is, if kids have that understanding and they use their skills and their talents and always make the right play for the team, you got the talent to do what you want. I get that. But when you're trying to develop to play on the next level, longevity, be a team player. Now you got certain role players, teams need you for that, need you for this. I'm gonna give you a prime example. I had the #1 high school player in the country, right? I got him in 8th grade, Lou Will. And you still had Kevin Durant and those guys still in high school. The thing that I had to get him to understand most was, one, is to be efficient, because he was just, he's going like a horse. You let him, if you don't teach a horse how to run, it'll run itself to death, right? So just teaching him to understand how to play with his pace. Your pace, like my pace is different from your pace.
Of course.
Right? So just getting him to understand what that means. Different players play at different speeds. Because you see some players, and it look like they're not going fast, but in their mind, they're really just going at their pace. So, Hala, Luka, some of those guys. But I said that to say this, Greg. So when I had Lou, the thing that I love that he got from me, and I'm gonna say he got that from me, I brought him another player with just as talented he was. Lou almost moved to the side to make this guy feel welcome, but he did not sacrifice what he was doing. Lou was like, he'll tell me, Coach, put him in with me. He put him in with me. Then the kid went to high school with him. He wanted him to go to the same high school with him. He ended up going to the same. Mike Mercer, they ended up to the best backcourt in the country. So my point is this, he understood, so it translated to the NBA. He was never trying to be the best player on the team. He was trying to be the best player for the team. And that's what made him special. That's why he got 16 years in the NBA. I'm going to say it. Lou Will should be a Hall of Famer. Y'all can say what you want to say. That's my boy. He should get a nod for the Hall of Famer, man. That man got three Sixth Man of the Year, right? You can say what you want to, how you want to say it. There's not many people could put the ball in the basket coming off the bench consistently. In the bag. That's a guaranteed.
Never got an All-Star either.
Never got an All-Star.
He was overlooked the last 3 years, and he was like 21
That's
points.
what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. You talk, you say what you want to say about him, but the body of work speak for itself. And I'm speaking on that because when I was watching that whole process, every time I saw it, I got pissed because I know the type of kid he really is. He's a good dude, and they tried to paint this whole picture like he's some type of, different person. But what he did on the court, you cannot overlook that and reward him for that. I'm going on a limb and say that whoever makes those decisions, hey man, y'all better nod my boy for the Hall of Fame. And I'm pissed. You heard?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, there's one player that kind of reminds me a little bit of his style of play, but Lou was different. It's Jamal Crawford. I think they had like a similar kind of spark when they were coming out there, and just their ability to create the space within just a few steps, right? I think that's everything that what you teach, right? So basically, sometimes your talent is not going to be, your team needs a certain amount of things, and you don't need everything that you got to offer always at all times for the team, and sometimes you have to give a little bit of your talent to make the team greater. And then the other thing is like Lou Williams is the epitome of changing directions, changing pace, not necessarily being extremely fast or extremely athletically gifted, but just enough to create enough distance to just get into a shooting motion that he likes.
But see, that came from his feet. Because,
absolutely is.
Now check this out, Greg. Lou Will was one of the most athletic players in the United States. Listen to what I'm saying. You thought he was sticking his chest on the basket. Listen to me, I'm telling you.
Wow.
So once he learned the importance of his feet and how to be efficient and effective, that's why he was, personally, he was a better player than Jamal because he was so much more efficient. Jamal, he did a lot of stuff before he had to get what he had, you know, all this and that and that. Lou, if he go left, that's a bucket. You can go to sleep. If he dribble left, that's a bucket. There's nothing you can do because he knew how to come off both legs, and he'll sway on you. And when he sway, his shoulders go back. That's a bucket. So, but
Coach getting passionate.
yes, man. yes, yes.
And that's that's exactly the feet work. I mean, what you're teaching, the ability to create a gap between your defender, make him bite into a direction, and you go the opposite direction. You just got enough space to get into your shooting motion exactly how you like it. And you don't need to fade away or like throw some crazy shot. You're actually getting into something you're really comfortable in by doing the work early, right?
Yeah, and
creating
see,
a separation.
I'm glad you brought the feet work. So we never really talked in depth about the feet work. And let me go in a little bit deeper on that, what that is. When we talk about feet work, right, that's why a lot of the players that came from Europe play soccer, right? So they already immune to using both of their feet and their legs. But here in America, like, we just so talented, we rely on the athleticism. Nobody focus on what the feet is doing. Well, you can't go nowhere without your feet, right?
Nope.
You can do all those dribbles you want to, right? But if you put the emphasis on the feet first, right? That's where I got a lot of feet first, right? It changes that dynamic. It just gives you more options, and then you start processing the game totally different. Because before you dribble, you already saw a pass. You already saw a pass, right? That's why when you saw me play, I was 2 or 3 steps ahead of the play. So, like, if I stole the ball, the guy already gone. The ball, it's out.
Yeah.
It's already gone.
I mean, when you were playing, so you were always into your stutter steps and trying to get into like the range, in the mid range, where somehow you always got the work done with your feet, so that you could shoot effortlessly. Once you got into your shooting motion, then after that it was automatic, and it wasn't anything overly complicated. It was a shot that you liked, where you felt in balance and you felt like really comfortable jumping into it because the work was already done with your feet. You already had the defender biting enough to where you could actually get, maybe a little sidestep and you just move up and he's not in your face. You got enough distance, you got no shade, bucket.
That was the magic.
Goodbye.
That's the magic.
Goodbye. And that helped you also with the longevity of your career.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden, when you're coming there at 21 and you're a puppy and jumping through the rim, through the gym, and then once you get like 33, 34, you get more athletic guys coming out. And so how you beat him? You still got to beat him.
Yes.
So that's how you had to affect your game and kind of do it. And you just were one step ahead, making him bite and just getting into very comfortable shooting mechanics. And the rest is history. The ball's back in the net.
That's why Lou Will got 16 years in the league, man, is because...
What is he, 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah, 6'2".
I mean, he's
6'3" pusher.
He's not,
And Lou almost the same size he was in high school. A little bit bigger. He put a little bit of mass. I saw him in the tournament.
I mean, not crazy.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, man, that's my boy. Like, you got to give him a nod in the Hall of Fame. So we're gonna go on with that. I'm just letting y'all know.
I'm giving him an honorary All-Star nomination
Yes.
forever, and I think there's at least 3 or 4 seasons. I know of a couple, like when he was playing with the Clippers, where he's just absolutely magical and absolutely turnkey. I mean, coming off the bench at 6 men, you have an ability to come with the second unit and really kind of, lift your team up because when you take your starters out, you give him a little bit of a rest, or whomever your starters are. The 6 men is going to go and carry the weight offensively while those guys rest is just as important as anything else.
Right. Let me give you a little methodology on the process and how I convey and when developing players. The first thing I get them to understand is there's 3 types of steps when you take mostly. Most players take the same type of steps all the time. So it's no deceiving the defender, because what the defender know, because you take the same, it's almost like if you dribble and you got the same rhythm with your dribble, it's easier because when your hand come up to go back down, that's when you can go for the steal.
Correct.
So it's similar to your feet, right? If you're taking these long steps, boom, boom, and that's your steps all the time, boom, boom, right? When your right come, the defender know that the left is coming behind it and vice versa. So, but if you got 3 different types of steps that you use based on what you need to do, right, to deceive the defender. So you got the long strides, boom, boom, boom. Then you got the control stride, boom, 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 control, boom, boom. Then you got the most important, I call them soccer steps. A lot of people call them shuffle or whatever. Take those right there, which is the most important steps in basketball, or probably in any sport that's played on the ground. When you take, yes, so when you take those shuffle steps, it gives you more options, right? Because now the defender's like, oh, shucks, what he's getting ready to do?
When.
Yes, and when he's going to do it.
When, because you go on alert, you just kind of like, and if that step comes at the wrong time, and you God forbid, you actually jump on it, and you're on it, and then there's another change of direction and another change of speed.
Yes.
Because changing speed and direction in the right timing is what makes the entire difference, right? Like you can go and cross and change dribble and go a different direction, but if you don't do it with effort and explosion, I mean, the guy is still going to follow you.
But before you go, your feet have to be prepared to go.
Correct.
A lot of guys' feet are not prepared to go. They just go. And so what happens is they lose a step because their feet are not prepared to go.
Right.
And so what I try to convey is, okay, there's two things. The movement of the ball is like steps, because once I get the ball past you, I'm by you. Even if I do the Euro, if I go here, the ball comes here, the ball is past you, so I'm by you. And so making them understand that, and then drilling their feet, right? Drilling their short steps, long steps, short step, long step, control step, short step, long step, short, and making sure that's part of their muscle memory as they grow, especially with our younger people. And I think that's going to give us an edge. Well, it's going to bring us, anyway, it's going to help our kids maximize their potential.
Correct.
Whatever it is, once they learn that approach. And I think more so than ever, we need to develop our kids that way. So, but it's been a great journey, man, and it's been wonderful. You know, I'm happy that you came to America and had a chance to meet me, and I had a chance to meet you. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's been wonderful, man. So, Greg, before we get out of here, man, I want you to tell the audience kind of what you do with your business, if you don't mind.
So, I mean, I guess I try to get the same passion that I had for basketball and put into something else. So when I moved back to France after my studies, I got hired by a winery in France to develop their U.S. channels in the U.S., obviously, to develop their export markets in the U.S. And I did that for 2 years. I did an internship in New York City. And then after that, they didn't continue on the company. So I decided, I was like, you know what? I made some relationship with some wholesalers around the country, and I think it's time that I go on my own, you know, create my own job. So I started an import company. So I import French wines. It's called Wine Circle. Wine Circle Imports, and so we import about 30 French wines from various regions of France. And you know, I just picked up a portfolio of Italian wines as well that we import also, and kind of manage through the country. So probably about 60 or 70 wines that I bring to the country, sell to wholesalers around the country, and they are responsible for selling it to retailers and restaurants.
Right.
And maybe sometimes I have a couple of bottles laying around for a good friend like you.
Oh, that's nice. It's good to have good friends, yo. Y'all heard it, right? That's my boy.
You gotta stay hydrated.
Yeah, he
you know
take care of me.
goes.
I'm gonna tell you that when I first went to France, man, and you know, I was kind of adamant about embracing the culture because I didn't know. Because all I knew is what I saw in the media. All I know is, you know, with French and ladies with skirts on, click like this. That's all I knew.
The baguettes and the berets.
The baguettes,
like all
that's
the
all
good
I
stereotypes.
Knew. That's what the media showed us.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, and when I went there, I was like, oh, this is totally different.
What? This is not a cartoon.
No, bro.
France is not a caricature? Come on.
And so, true story, man. They put me in a real nice hotel when I first got there in Lyon, France.
Right.
So, and I ordered breakfast, man, and I ordered some grits and some grits, some bacon, and some biscuits. In France, grits in France. No, I know, man. Come on, man. I'm coming.
So you tried to order
I tried to order that.
Okay.
So they brought me a baguette, a croissant, some butter, and some jellies. Right? I said, what's this? Where my grits at? So that was awakening. But long story short, I started to embrace because I used to, certain things I wouldn't try. Oh, it didn't look good. But when I tried it, it was good. I was, oh, that's good. Like I tried all the delicacies, the foie gras, which is duck liver, right? Is that
Yeah,
duck
it's
liver?
either duck or geese.
Yeah, geese liver.
It's
yeah,
a pate.
Yeah, pate.
Kind of a very fancy pate.
I used to start loving all the pate on coast, and I just fell in love with the cheeses, right? The mustia, the camembert, all of those cheeses. I fell in love with those. And then I got hooked on the wine when I started learning the different tastes and how to taste it, and how the wines complement the meal, the taste, you know, based on the type of meal that you eat. I wasn't a real big fan of the white wines, but the red wines I was able to, because it's a myth where people say, well, you got to drink white wine with white fish and chicken, and then you drink red wine with steak. So talk on that, man. Just help the people out with that.
I mean, look, there's exception to every rule. There's kind of like general concepts that you have. I mean, it's the same thing as basketball. You have general concepts. And then there, you know, I mean, the general concept is to go like, hey, shoot with the opposite hand of the foot you're jumping on. Well, you can certainly make it work in doing the same hand. So it's the same thing. Like with fish, you have light-bodied reds. Typically, they're gonna go well. Usually, you don't want a red that's too big and has too much tannin, so it has too much aging on oak. You want something that's a little bit lighter and has more acidity. That'll go really well with fish or chicken or poultry or things of that nature.
But can you do me a favor? Some of those words you just said right there, slow down and break those words down.
Which one? Tannins?
Yeah.
Tannins,
real quick, yes.
Tannins is basically what you get from skin contact, which is basically what grips your tongue.
Yep.
It's a molecule that is unstable until you age the one on oak. Oak will add that one atom that creates a stable molecule. I guess we don't have to go too far in chemistry, but but basically, like the bigger reds that have more body, more richness, more alcohol tend to do better in oak. Those probably would be better with red meats or gamey, you know, like venison or something like that, something that has stronger flavors. And the more subtle wines want something that is a little bit more subtle. So you kind of want to go big wines with explosive flavors, and like more subtle wines, more finesse-oriented wines with you know, lighter dishes that are more elegant.
I know some people be wondering, like when they go to restaurants and they see people with wine, you know, you can tell people who like really experienced drinking wine most of the time, and they'll hold the glass up, you know, and look at it. So you explain to them, why do they hold that glass up and look at the wine?
I mean, I guess you can look into, I mean, there's multiple things. The first thing, looking at the color of the wine is going to give you a good bit of indication. So depending on the color. So like if you see a bright white wine that has, if you have a dark yellow color, it's probably going to have a little bit more sweetness or a little bit more age, or maybe a little oak aging in there. On a red wine, if you see like a very profound color, really dark color or really light color where you kind of see it through, will give you an indication as to how big of a wine it is, oftentimes what grapes is grown in there. And there's exception to every rule, so just so we know. But generally speaking, it gives you an idea of what you're going to get in a wine. That's the first connection you have. Then you smell it and kind of figure out, your nose is a lot more sensitive than your palate itself, so kind of figuring out what kind of flavors you have in there. Usually you kind of smell it first, and then you agitate it and you air it out to where some of the flavors explode. And it's nice to have a glass that kind of, you know, concentrates a little bit of the flavors. And then with the taste, you can kind of basically tell if it's sweet or dry, sour, you know, tannic, and so on. So then you kind of figure out. The important part, it's like everything else as basketball, right? It's the same thing. You want to have that harmony, you want to have that balance, you want to have a team that's coherent. That's why Dallas Mavericks is kind of complicated, because, you know, they have a lot of talent, but does the talent fit together?
Perfect.
You know, all the flavors of the wine have to find to where at the end of the day, you got to be like, you know, this is really good, this is a really pleasant overall feel, and I enjoy it.
Well, can you do me a favor too? Well, I'm gonna do a disclaimer first, right? This is a disclaimer right here, right? We're not condoning people drink. This is just a personal preference.
Moderation is the most important part of it.
Moderation is the most important thing,
Yes.
and we're not condoning drinking, right? Especially drinking and driving. All right, so that's our disclaimer. I love drinking wine when I eat my food, right? And I don't drink big. It's just a half a glass. I just sip it. Right? It's so good. So explain to people, if you don't mind, like when the people that never really drunk wine before, and a lot of people when they taste it, oh, it's bitter, because they can't appreciate. They won't even get to the appreciation of it because they can't get past the bitter part. Can explain to the people how they just have to try it, in my opinion.
Right.
Just explain
Let
to
it
them.
breathe.
Well, I think if it's too bitter for stuff, that's probably not the right wine. You should probably shake it off and go to one that's a little bit less bitter.
Right.
Because bitterness is something that you sometimes want a part of the wine, but it's got to be very subtle part of it and the overall feel. Wine is something that you can explore. I mean, it's a postcard of different regions of the world, different grapes of the world, and I think. I mean, moderation is everything, right? So, like, that's what we keep on talking about. But basically, there's so many different wines that you can explore and so many different flavors. It's almost impossible that you can't find a wine that you enjoy drinking.
Yes.
It's like saying, well, I don't like anything that looks yellow. I mean, it's so abstract, right?
Yes.
So there's so many different tastes and flavors and varieties that are out there. I think it's worth exploring just because it's so important as a cultural aspect. What it's meant in history. There's tons of books about like the wine and wars in the world and how it was influencing the entire world. I mean, when you look in Germany invading France and things of that nature and what they did and trying to get into Champagne, trying to get into Burgundy, trying to get into that. There's massive history into the relevance of it. And then, within moderation, it has some good health benefits as well.
Sure.
From a culinary standpoint, to me, wine is meant to be poured with food, and mostly I will drink it with my meal. Not too much outside. Also, I try not to drink too much. I mean, I'm in the business, and so
Right.
it's important to stay to stay healthy and to stay to respect basically what alcohol is. But I think the most important part is to find wines to enhance the flavor profile of your food.
Right. Exactly.
And once you figure out that harmony, it takes your food to a whole new level.
Yes.
And it takes the wine experience to a whole new level
Yes.
while making it, especially when you're enjoying it with friends and family around a very nice meal. Look, it just makes it a very pleasant experience all around.
Hey, it's the weirdest thing, man. And I don't do this intentionally, man. So when I eat a really good meal, I like sea bass, right?
Okay.
I got a sea bass. I get my mashed potatoes and I have a real nice salad, right? When I get that perfect wine, and when I eat that sea bass, and I just sip that, my eyes go to the back of my head. My daughter be like, "Daddy, what's wrong with you?" Because that aroma.
So what's your response? Where's my list of things that are wrong with me? Hold on.
It's that aroma, man. But my point is, though, you mentioned something too. There's been study there are some health benefits to
Correct.
it, especially for the heart. Taking one glass a day of red wine that's supposedly supposed to help with the heart and some other things.
But all those studies go to hell if you abuse of the kindness of wine. So
Heard
that's
that?
the most important part,
Don't
right?
abuse
Like,
it.
moderation is everything. I don't believe in
Yes.
absolutes. And so I think it's important to stay within moderation and
Yes.
drink a little bit of wine, but not too much.
Yes. And then my last question I want to ask you, I want you to touch on, explain to people briefly, what is the process of developing a good wine? Just explain that whole process.
All right, so the first thing you need is, I guess there's nature, essentially. So basically you need a location that is, so the Earth is a time lapse of different eras. And as you go through the Earth and you go further through the layers, you can see the history of the Earth. And usually the vines will get their nutrients and the flavors into the grapes from layers that are underneath them maybe 1,000 years ago. So the further the roots go down, if they're limestone in the soil from where the North Sea was recovering, a long time, getting some of those fossils, you get a lot of the freshness. You get the granite, the limestones will give a lot of freshness. So the first thing is you need a good area with good exposure to the sun. Usually it's south-southwest, where you get good exposure to the sun. Then you need the right climate. So Georgia is not ideal here because of humidity. Humidity makes it complicated, so if the skins are too thin and there's too much humidity, they have a tendency to expand and then they explode, and then it's a recipe for rot. So that's why muscadine does really well, because it's got really thick skins. Now, thick skins will give bitterness, so usually they leave a little bit of residual sugar. So usually, ideally, you want to have good sun exposure, warm days, cool nights. Obviously, you want to have a good soil structure that is appropriate for the wine that you're growing there. Of course, you got to find the right grapes to grow in there. And then there's the human aspect of things. You have to have the right farmer on there that does the right thing for the vines, in terms of like how far apart they are, how much he tends to them, when he takes the leaves out, that kind of stuff. And then finally, once he harvests the wines, so the grapes as the finished products, his ability to turn that into really good. So there's a lot of things that are going on in there. There's some things you can't control, so you can't make great wines in areas that are not made for that. And then you have to pick the right grape varieties. Now, it's a game of patience too, because from the day you plant a vine, the first 3 years, don't even count on it. The vine is going to be young and vigorous and just running around everywhere with like a chicken with its head cut off. Like lots of grapes, but really diluted flavors. So you need at least 3 years for the vine to settle and kind of become a little grumpier and kind of canalize its energy a little bit more. And also you train it to shoot less grapes, but more concentration and more flavor. And so after 5 to 10 years, that's when you're really gonna get the real juice. So it's a game of patience as well. Like you have to respect nature, and you can't go faster than the process.
Hey, wow. Hey, you got wine 101 right here from my man Greg right here. 101.
And
101.
And wine 102 is don't let anybody or anyone tell you what you should like and what you shouldn't like, because your opinion is the only opinion that truly matters to you.
Absolutely.
Nice.
With that being said, hey, G, man, this was cool, boy. Thank
Always
you,
a
man.
pleasure hanging out with you, man.
Thank you, man. Hey, man, till next time, hey, y'all stay down. We come with a lot of different topics, man. Thanks for coming, man.
Absolutely. Thanks
We
for
out
having
of
me.
here.